Everybody, good morning, happy Friday, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied voice, Quindy, disembodied hands, Quindy, got it right that time though, and John, and Justin, although John is probably fulfilling because, well, that's what you guys were all watching before this. And John is always like on the spot. How's it going? How's it going, peoples? I'm trying to decide which palette to use today. Because I could use the wet palette. Because it's all prepped and stuff. Meaning that it's actually wet. John is always fulfilling. That's terrible. Terrible. Horrible. Very bad. There we are. All right. But yeah, so it's Lysette Day. It's Lysette Day. I was going to repaint those runes, wasn't I? Maybe we should just work on that because I'm so annoyed at that sword right now. And if I'm going to do that, I probably need to actually mix it up in the not wet palette. Sorry, wet palette. No love. Because if you're going to do precision stuff, I do find that it's helpful to use the wet palette instead. Just because you need to nail that paint consistency, right? And nailing the paint consistency is very difficult on the wet palette, even for me, and I am an experienced painter. Hey, ArrowWiz, thanks! 19 months, dang. Is impressive, is what that is. Thank you. Reaper thanks you. Reaper thanks you. Alright, so if we're going to do some M&Ms today, I actually have my lantern yellow already out. And I need my M&M gold thing there, and my rich leather there. Yeah, that's about right. That seems like it might be good. She actually is on a lid for the hobby holder, but because my setup is so close to the edge back here, having the hobby holder on her, or having her on the hobby holder is not advisable because it's too heavy and it hangs over the edge. So if you're wondering why I am using a cap when I'm usually using a cube, that would be why, everybody. That would be why. So, of course, it is our first Bones USA model, Lysette. The first one we're painting on the stream, as well as our first ever released. My back has been, yeah, I mean, it got mostly better yesterday, Twisted Oma. It's just doing the second stream that made it a little grumpy at me. You know, it's never perfect, but it rebounds pretty quick after I make it angry, usually, because I take very good care of it. I'm good at sweet-talking it after I annoy it. Probably the story of my life. Let's see here. So yeah, these purple runes not working for me. Not working. Gonna go gold. It's much easier to just kind of like make them look fancy with the gold. So that's what we're gonna do. There we go. Gonna mix up a bunch of stuff. I'm glad it is Friday though. It is good that it is Friday. And it's a totally open weekend for me for the most part. Let's mix up our happy little colors here. Happy trees. Happy M&M gold. As usual, I'm working in puddles of like 4 to 1. Except where I add an extra 1 in, which is going to be here. I like to add extra yellow, like really, really bright yellow into my gold, because I just feel like it gives it that extra pop. Every miniature painter on the planet that does gold M&M has a different recipe for it. So always, if you're looking for something different, always ask people what they use. Yeah, my brain is dead too, Quindy. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. Like, I have to work on some Patreon stuff. I hope my brain is up for it. Right now, it woke up and it was like, zombie brain, right? It was like, it needed to eat other people's brains because it was out of brain. And I can't have coffee today because I had it yesterday. No coffee for Anne. Not unless things get super dire, but I'm hoping things do not get super dire. Trying to wean myself off of the caffeine. It's very easy for me to get really caffeine dependent, and I really hate it when I am. Because I like to be in control of my energy level a little bit more than that. Alrighty, so pretty much we've got some 6 puddle drops here. We've got 4 drops of rich leather, which is a color that, although it is leathery, is also a great starter for NMM Gold if you do not currently have NMM Gold base in your box, as I currently do not have. So I've been using a lot of rich leather. The other one that you can use that's a really good base that I used to use is Uniform Brown, which is 9127. It's a really good base for NMM Gold, especially if you're going more of a, or if you're going for NMM Bronze, where you're a little bit more muted out, or brass. Uniform can be a really good choice. This is 4 drops of NMM Gold Highlight with 1 drop of Lantern Yellow and 1 drop of Rich Leather, just to give them something in common. And there's the Lantern Yellow and Russet Brown here to knock it down. Because you always need a little extra dark, and I kind of mixed a color like this yesterday and really liked it, so I was like, oh, let's just try that. Then this one is 4 drops of NMM Gold Highlight with 1 drop of Lantern, just give me a really rich, yellowy, buttery highlight, and then pure white, of course. Yeah, Black Indigo, well, we knew Black Indigo rocked, right? It was out before, but Wild Violet is a good one. I'm just talented that way, Barl. Coffee and spite, Nomad Zeke. See, that's what I don't want to get to. Like, that's why I actually tend to wean myself off of caffeine when I catch myself getting really dependent on it. Is that I don't want to hit a day where I must have it to function. Like, I've hit days like that in the past. I used to be like that. I used to live like that. And I really don't like it. So I try to wean myself mostly off caffeine so that when I have a coffee, I actually feel it, right? What really bothers me is if I have a coffee and I don't even feel it. I like caffeine to actually work. So I'm kind of trying to back off of it a bit and only have it like 1 or at most 2 times a week, which is very hard now that I know how to use the espresso maker. Because, you know. Yeah, I get it. Some people really, really need it, especially when your biorhythm is, as you say, Night Owl. When your biorhythm does not match the usual work cycle of America, then you're screwed. Like, I totally get that. You've got to do whatever you can at that point to adapt. Well, that isn't quite rich enough. That's not quite where I wanted it. Where is my rich leather? Yay! Prime-iversary. 4 months, Crows and Bones. Thank you. Yes, happy dance. Happy dance. Yeah, medicinal caffeine. What I do is I wean myself back onto black tea instead of, I don't drop caffeine altogether. I just go back to tea, which is a bit less caffeine, and go back from there until I find that when I have a coffee, I can feel it. I can feel it pep me up. Then I'm into my happy place. But there was a point, I think during college and after, where I was so caffeine dependent, and it was just not really funny. And I wouldn't even feel it when I had an espresso. Like, it was just like, oh. Ah, yeah, that's true. I have read that, Artie. Is it true for you? Caffeine is calming for ADHD? I know it's not true for everybody, but then what is, right? Ah. Nice, Corinnico. Coffee makes you sleepy, Silmar? Yeah. Some people, everybody's different. Everybody's got a weird reaction, right? All right, let me see here. So we've got kind of a shadow / base. We've got our kind of a mid-tone. I'm not real happy with that, but I'll work with it. It's a ochre color. I'd like it to be a little bit darker than this, but I don't know that I want to really pop it lower. So I'm going to try it, see if I like it. I like these to be spaced evenly, though, and you can see that these two are a lot closer than these two. And the reason for that is that I dropped some russet brown into this. So actually what I should do is take a little bit of this and add it to this to darken it down on just another step toward each other, and also to share a little bit more color between them. And that's a little bit better. I just really like my triads to be somewhat evenly spaced. Strongly caffeinated drink. Really weird, Otter Mama, huh? Possibly because it's supposed to increase like alertness and focus, I guess. Makes sense. Hey, Inara. We're talking about weird side effects of caffeine and not so weird side effects of caffeine. Where are my glasses? Here they are. I am not tracking beautifully today, so if I get distracted, it's a squirrel day. We should have a little squirrel emoji for me, really. For when Anne's brain is like just not going to stay on topic. There are days when I'm so focused that I like ignore your chatter and like actually teach. And then there are days where it's like, squirrel. Today is squirrel day. It's very much squirrel day. I used to drink, man, I went through high school addicted to Mountain Dew. And then post-college, I quit cold turkey, quit all soda. I lost like 10 or 15 pounds when I did it too. So it was a smart move for me. I do every once in a while think about it and miss it a little bit. I do love the flavor of Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper snow cones at the fair, at the county fair, were my favorite. Oh yeah, I've stopped drinking caffeine after I think 5:30 p.m. is my cutoff in our. That's smart though, I think, especially when you know you're just gonna your brain like if your brain has trouble falling asleep anyway, which mine sometimes does. It wants to like run around on its little hamster wheel for a while. Yeah, that's interesting, Agent Marvel. That's pretty cool. Alrighty, Lysette, let's fix your S word. I had to mix up some brown liner also because I want to block out the purple runes. So let's get closer and let's get in focus. All right. Got our happy little NMM colors there, but I don't want them in frame necessarily, so we'll see. Let's see. I want the color to show up for what it is. Yeah, I guess a little bit of white in the frame isn't too bad. All right, so we're going to use a nice sharp brush. You can use a tiny brush if you want, or you can use a medium-sized brush with a great point, like my Da Vinci Maestro, Series 10 size 1, or Winsor & Newton size 0, any other medium-sized Kolinsky with a really good tip. If you do not use Kolinsky sables, you poor person, then use a smaller brush. And it will enable you to retain more control. Also, do not load much paint onto your brush. I only load a little tiny bit. I actually don't load even half the brush. The paint wicking up there is actually due to me just unloading the brush and causing it to wick up a little higher. I only dipped about a quarter of my brush in the paint to begin with. You want control, and you can't have control with a bunch of paint on your brush. Especially now when you're trying to do little tiny squirrely designs like this. See, more squirrels. It is a squirrely day. I need a shirt. I wonder if there is a t-shirt that says it's a squirrely day with a squirrel on it. Like, I need that. I do have a squirrel shirt. It's the from NPR. It's the Animal Spirits shirt. So it's a squirrel with a martini that has an acorn in it, which I love. It is a great shirt. Maybe I should just wear that one today. Maybe it is my mood today. Oh, you should do whatever you want for your mushroom, Queen Varl. But yeah, if you want to try it, or like a little kind of freehandy thing. I mean, for me, I just thought it would be interesting because I see big areas like that and I try to figure out how to make them more interesting. You could also just do very dramatic shadows and highlights there. For me, because I love little micro details and doing that fine work, little dots made sense to me. Also, the thought of spores. I thought it would make sense for her. So I don't see like really well some of these details. So I'm just kind of like seeing where the raised areas are. If I can see the shape, I outline it. If I can't, I just fill it in like I did here because I can go back and get my NMM in there. But I'm going to cover over all this purple because I'm annoyed at it. And as always, I'm pretty much painting on the exhale. When I inhale, I pause. or I reload my brush. The reason is that when you inhale, your muscles naturally tense, and you are more likely to shake. So when you have to paint tiny things, paint on the exhale. Sweet Valentar, that's exciting. Are you excited? Was it a big order? I have some Dungeons and Doggies things arriving. My fear is that David is not nearly silly enough to roleplay Dungeons and Doggies with me. I may have to actually stream game some Dungeons and Doggies. Medium, small order. Oh, okay. So you just had some weird stuff that wasn't in on a truck up to now or something. Nice, Coops. Nice. I'm on the fence about backing the new one, Nomad Zeke. Weirdly, I really love the setting, the look of the setting for the new one. And I might acquire it just to use it as a 5e setting, not even Dungeons and Doggies reasons. But I do like the otter. I like the orangutan too. So I am thinking about it. I have it on a reminder on my to-do list to check the Kickstarter a day before it ends and decide whether I'm going to pledge. But it's the other thing about that new Dungeons and Doggies expansion, and the reason I like another reason I like the Animal Adventure stuff anyway, is it's not really expensive. Like it is expensive, but it's not like some of the resin Kickstarters I back are hundreds of dollars, and it's not that. So it's a lot easier for me to think about buying into it when it's just, $50 euros. I can budget for that. That's something that I can plan into my budget. Or plan to recoup and save back. So I am kind of leaning toward it. The problem with the cats is that I think they're just really small, War Shadow, and you know how I like to paint big. So the doggies themselves, a lot of them are very small too. So I'm like, I'm actually not backing it for the miniatures, but for the concept, I think. Some of the miniatures I really love. I love the Golden Retriever Wizard. He's amazing. And I love a few of the others. I really like the look of the Goat Paladin in this new one. It looks really good, and really fun. So, but the kitties are a little small for me. Like, it's hard for me to get them to look good with all that little detail. And let's face it, I'm a both person, but I do love dogs. I don't know, Cooves. I don't know if they've done one yet. Yeah, the baby goat druid is funny. The Ram Paladin is my favorite Chroniko. Yeah, I don't like to wait for retail because then it's going to be more expensive. Like, if I want the thing and I have a chance to get in on the Kickstarter and I have the money for the Kickstarter, I usually do it because it usually is a better deal. The only time we don't is when, like, if David and I look at something and it really isn't a good discount. I forget which one it was that we looked at last year. And we were like, we did the math and we're like, wow, we could get this cheaper at Walmart after it comes out. So we just decided not to go in on it. But for any Kickstarter that gives a bit of a discount, or that can be hard to find, and Dungeons and Doggies is definitely that. These days it's hard to find the Gullet Cove source book and stuff. I know, because I was just looking. It's hard to find it without paying a lot, because they're really hard to find right now. Oh, was it cheaper at retail? Yeah, you gotta watch it, right? Sables vary a lot on Shelties, though. You can get, like, an orangey color. Are you talking orangey sable, or, like, a more mahogany color, or, like, it really depends, Cooves. like, you'd have to look at the specific dog, because, I mean, I used to have a sable Sheltie. They come in all sorts of colors. Yeah, I'm still on the fence, Kroniko. Like I said, I actually like the kind of idea of the setting, and so that may get me to spring. All right, so there we are. We've got our purple painted over. Yeah, ask in the Discord, then I can look at it. I'll see if I might get to the Discord a bit this weekend. I know I was on there on Wednesday. Wednesday is my Discord day for sure, and then any other time I can fit it in. There we go. Yeah, there's all sorts of... Sable is one of the most variable colors in it, and I mean, in some breeds even more so. Like our Shiloh Shepherds have all sorts of sables. Just like, gotta have at least a dozen different varieties of sable. Sheltie's a little less, but you can still see a large variance of the amount of black in the coat and the exact color of the red or yellow color, which is the same gene, the red-yellow. Phalomelanin, I think, is what it is. Essentially, with dogs, there are genes that control the black and genes that control the red/yellow. So I'm using white. It's thinned down to about a 2-to-1. It's enabling me to hit these details. And my Sheltie, when I was a kid, was really reddish, like dark reddish. Like, he had that mahogany color to the sable that I don't see too much. So yeah, they're very different. They could be lighter or darker in addition to different shades of reddish or golden or orangey gold. Like strawberry blonde is probably the equivalent for a red gold Sheltie. Yep. Sable is just that. It's a really, really variable color. And technically it's not a color, but a pattern. It's a coat pattern, genetically. So little tiny things. So we're going to see how the purple works out as opposed, but I want this to... I mean, if you're into brushes and you're not into dogs, Nomadzeke, then that makes perfect sense. M. Fontana with the tier 1 for 22 months. 2 more months and I'll have to sing the double subiversary song to you. Just came back from a trip? Cool. Darksword does Sheltie scoops. Also. They have a Sheltie pack. I think I even ordered it. But if you want them dressed as adventurers, you'll have to look in the Dungeons and Doggies. If they haven't done a Sheltie, then I'm kind of startled. It's one of the more popular breeds. Although lately they seem to have people kind of voting on what they want. So maybe there's not a big Sheltie contingent. But they've done Australian Shepherds, so you'd think they're very similar audiences, similar types. Oh, is he? What? Jim's going to be thrown under the bus next week? Wow. How'd somebody talk him into that? I mean, cool. Jim is highly entertaining. I would definitely say that show is not going to be PG. Do not let your young children, watch Crow's Nest next week. That's maybe just me overreacting, but... Alright, I think I've got all those runes kind of etched out. You'll probably ever, that's true. I don't have time to watch it usually because it's like prime Patreon working time for me. But I would not be surprised. to find that show is not exactly 5-year-old friendly. Or 10-year-old friendly. Or maybe even 14-year-old friendly. Alright. Boop. Haha! All of the happy little runes are runed in. If you want the cheapo way to do this, you could also use the side of the brush. But if the runes, the danger is that if the runes aren't very sharply sculpted, that you can end up with just a muddle. I decided that I wanted to go the really precise way this time. But I'm still using the side of my brush to catch some of these runes. Like, I'm not just putting the tip down and painting it. Sometimes I am using the side of the brush to catch the tops of the designs. And you can use that actually, once you've got those runes painted on, you can do what I just did. Run your brush, the side of your brush lightly over the area, and I'll load just a little bit more paint onto it. This is not dry brushing. My brush is not dry. It will work best on really tight, small areas like this row right here, rather than big, loose areas here. But it's totally doable if you if you're not yet good at brush control. Although if you aren't, trying to hit these is also good practice for you. Practice is the only thing that increases your brush control. And you'll get to a certain point just painting minis in general. But when it comes to really small details, you have to work on them to get good at them. Oh, Jim is Dark Sword's CEO. Mac Attack. Jim Ludwig. Very good friend. Crow Show. Yeah, there is always VOD. This is true. VODs are a thing. Thank God for VOD. Because sometimes you just can't watch it at the time it's on. Okily dokily. We're almost, I just want to get a nice solid white on this so that we can really make them stand out. I don't know how the gold NMM is going to work on this. We're just kind of going to fly by the seat of our pants here and see if we like it. Anything's got to be better than the purple, though. Yeah, don't get eaten by a grue. That just sounds unpleasant. Just stay away from the dark. Yeah, it's true, Mac. I think that to qualify that, there are people who do benefit from doing the reading and books before they try it, and there are people who are better just trying it because people learn, different ways. I have a much better reading comprehension and also like visual learning in general. I'm much better if you don't throw me into the deep end, but if you allow me to like look at watch somebody else doing it in detail and let me read the instructions, then I can do it. All right. The problem with these small areas is just that it's so hard to get color to show up. We're going to do our best. Like the last ditch, guys, is honestly just going silver with them and just highlighting the whole sword like it's just metal, which may be the only thing. The only way to do this, we'll see. It may end up being just that these surfaces are so small that unless you use a really bright color, it doesn't really show up. But I want to find something that I like. So, although the white runes are all cool and all, I'm hoping that the gold runes will kind of show up. no, Blorf. Yeah, I think it helps more it helps more with conceptual techniques than with mechanical techniques to just watch the video and read the book. Because that's half of the battle right there, right? Is understanding how to do NMM is really starting to really understand how to do NMM. It's in your head. And you can learn that from a video or a book. But the muscle control to do tiny stuff is definitely a mechanical technique. And so you have to physically practice it in order to get good at it. So I think that with painting, there are conceptual techniques where you can get quite far just studying how light works and how metal looks and in what environments. But eventually you have to apply the paint. Because you can think you understand it, but then when you go to do it in a 3D setting, it can totally baffle you. Just trying to get all these little things painted gold, and then I'm going to come in with more yellow and hope that that will bring up. I do see the gold, so now that I've got the white covered up. So that's a point in our favor. It may work after all. And of course, the easiest way to do this sword would have been if we had done metallics. At that point, it's just like metallics and a wash and a highlight. Ta-da! Done. But then I wouldn't have been able to use NMM to bring out some of the finer details. It would have been harder to bring out some of the finer details on the model. All right. Excellent. Oh, I think seeing the process with miniature painting is key. You can read about it. You can even sometimes watch a video about it. But the ideal way to learn this stuff is exactly what we're doing here on this stream. It's watching step by step with explanation and the ability to ask questions if something is confusing. That's the ideal, really. I even feel like this is sometimes, depending on the subject, this can be better than in-person learning because you guys can get a lot closer and see the details on this on screen. Now, it probably would be even better in person if you had a really good camera setup where you could get really high resolution, because I know the streaming resolution is not ideal. Just because that's just Twitch. Yeah, eventually you have to put paint on the model. I just didn't want to dislike reading tutorials and stuff because, it does help. It's just not going to do it for you, like you say. And sometimes it can be an outright distraction from actually doing the work. I think people often do that. I know that I used to do it all the time, and I still fight with it, is the tendency to treat reading about the thing as actually doing the thing, when it's really not. All right, so now we're putting some yellow, medium yellow. I'm wondering if maybe I don't need this medium color, this one. If I don't need it on the smaller stuff. I think I'm probably going to be better off going just to the yellow. Some people would disagree with you, Kirst, just because of the anxiety factor. The fear factor. Where people are nervous about actually trying the new thing. We just had somebody on the stream the other day who was like that. They were getting up the nerve to try the hobby. Yeah. I heard a good slogan about that yesterday. I think it was in my audiobook. But it was like, action destroys fear. If you have fear of doing something, actually doing it will destroy your fear of it. So I'm just going to go straight up to the bright yellow and see if I can make that read. Because I've got such a small thing here, and just like when I was talking about NMM yesterday on the half orc, if you have a tiny surface, you don't need as many steps. You don't need as many color transitions. I never strip them, Mac Attack, not ever. I just paint over them. Like, I just don't like stripping them. And I couldn't use a sandblaster anyway for a lot of my stuff since it's resin. But yeah, I can't remember. I remember vaguely trying to strip a mini back in the Dark Ages and not being happy with the results and just deciding that I didn't know why I wasn't just going to prime it over and paint it over anyway. Because my paint was so thin, the paint that I had on it, I wasn't going to lose detail. Yeah, being kind to yourself is really, being gentle with yourself is really important, Saku. Not judging yourself if you just can't do it on a day, if it's just too much. It's okay. You can come back to it. The only way you fail is to stop trying. And even then, you've only, like, stopped one thing in your life. You could still be perfectly successful in other things you care about. I mean, there are people who put mini painting away for 20 years and then come back to it. Package has arrived. Awesome, Valendar. Oh, cool. Cool, Kirst. Yeah, congrats on the second vax. On these really little tiny bits, I'm just going to put a little touch of yellow on some of the higher points. It's not going to really show too much. Toward the end where there's just tiny details. But having that darker background does make these little bits stand out a little bit better. I do like the gold better. I think it's not terrible. So we'll just move. We're going to go forward with the gold. And we do need a pure white highlight on some of these. I just want to make sure my yellow is strong enough. It's getting there, Curse. Thanks. We didn't like the purple that we tried before. It just wasn't bright enough to really look good. So I decided that gold was my next option, and I like it a lot better, so. There we go. Shiny. Okay, I do want a little bit on the bottom there, though. I feel like I missed the bottom of this little rune, and it just is kind of dark. So I'm going to correct that by putting some color in there. There we go. Just had to get it to go down a little bit more and minimize that dark line there. It was just the wrong kind of purple cursed. I don't have a really bright purple that I used on this model, and this was too close in shade to the steel, so it wasn't going to show up. It wasn't going to have high enough contrast to really look good. Something got auto-modded? I have no idea. The Twitch auto mod is really weird sometimes, so. Alright, I'm going to put just tiny touches of pure white on here. If I want this to look shiny, I've got to hit it with pure white. And even though it's tiny little bits and it may not really convey a lot of shine, it will give it that little bit of life. But you don't want to wipe out your yellow, so you just put it in little pinpoints. Usually in the middle of a previous shiny dot. Or a previous yellow layer, I should say. There. Shiny. There we go. Ah, blurf. It's very easy to blurf when you're doing these little guys, but that's okay. The only purple that would probably have worked on this sword cursed would be really bright, and the reason is that color is really hard to make show on very tiny surfaces unless it's bright. And the problem with our purple here is that it's quite muted. It's beautiful, but it's very muted and very close to the silver color because it's a grayish purple. So that meant that it wasn't going to have enough contrast to show up very well. High contrast, much better. If I had used clear purple or clear purple plus some clear magenta, I could have absolutely made it look purple, but it also would have been the wrong color purple for the rest of the model. Quindy. This is Bones USA. Mac. Bones USA, which is superior to other bones. Hey, Jelly. I think I do need to grab a block to plop this on, though, because my hand is definitely not liking holding this. So, can I just plop it on a small block, or will it not like that? Hold on. I think I can plop it on a small block. Holding this cap is really annoying. I don't know how people do it. Like, I remember having people at my paint club who were just using caps as holders. I just can't. It really makes my hand cramp. Yeah, Bones USA, all for it. It is the best. It really is the best. It is superior. Even David likes it. He's really persnickety. Yeah, this is a harder plastic. It's probably a little bit more brittle because of that. But it also holds details so well. It's really, really... It almost feels like resin. Like, as far as the hardness to softness. Which I like because resin is my favorite material to paint. Hello, Bob and Julie. Yeah, I mean, I have this jelly, but the thing is that I can't use it on camera because the model has to be really close to the edge of the table for me to sit comfortably and keep my back straight. So I can't use the heavy hobby holder on it. So better for me to just pop it on a block with some sticky tack. The block is small enough for me to hold comfortably. Yeah, I think so too, Varl. Which is probably what they were aiming for. is, oh, it was really complicated, Polaris. You may have to kind of go back and look at the start of the stream after the VOD comes out. But it's a mixture of like rich leather and russet brown. Rich leather is a color I use a lot. You can see it's just a little bit darker. And then I use a lot of NMM gold highlight to mix these colors, but I add a little bit of lantern yellow because I like my gold to be more yellowy. And then I use pure white for the highlights. And I use round liner for the shading, for the really dark stuff. It varies a little bit. Every artist has a different NMM gold recipe, so. And now I am just highlighting the final bit before I go and do this on the front. Although I actually probably should finish the gold NMM back here in general. Got all the colors mixed up. Doesn't really make sense not to. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, normally I really do like blocks, and I have round things I use as well. Like my Red Bull container, which you all like laugh at me for using. My Red Bull Power Shot miniature holder, which currently is miniatureless. But it's long and heavy, and like I said, painting on the edge of the table here, and I mean painting on the edge of the table here, because I need to sit up and keep my back good in order to be, comfortable. It means that using a really heavy holder or a bottom heavy or a bottom long holder is not good for me. So this is purely a constraint of doing the streaming, because where I have to hold the model underneath the camera in a certain position for an hour and a half. I have small hands, so smaller handles are definitely better for me, but especially when streaming. So it's entirely streaming that gives me this constraint. I use the hobby holder and other things like it when I'm painting, personally, no problem. But when I have to make sure that I'm keeping in frame for you guys, oh no, blurf. Blurf, blurf, blurf. It's a blurfy day. It's squirrel day. Squirrel days are full of blurfs. Cursed, you definitely want to do something like this. If you want to avoid rubbing parts off of your minis. I really, really, really do recommend it. I don't know what I would do. Like the only time I drop my mini in the paint, the only time I don't do that is if I'm working with a larger model and I use bubble wrap. I find blue tack is sufficient for lighter weight models, Crows, but yeah, maybe. Yeah, I use bubble wrap a lot for bigger models to just cradle them. It depends. If your hands are really dry and you don't have a lot of oils on your hands, and your hands aren't really acidic, your pH is more neutral, then you probably could hold the mini. It will help you to keep, it'll just keep you from having to touch it up as much to get a handle for it. It also sometimes can be a little more comfortable for your hand, depending on how much you run into problems, like your hand cramping and stuff, which I never did, but now I do a bit more. There. Sorry, I need to squish her down. It was just that my blue tack was mostly in the middle of the thing, and I needed to squish out my blue tack to the edges a little bit more. Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, if it works for you, it works for you, Cursed. It does not work for me. Everything I've got is mounted on a handle of sorts, except for the bigger pieces where I'm using the bubble wrap. Just because I get sick of rub-off. I know I'm going to have to touch up something when I get to the end of it anyway, but if I have to touch up too much of it, it just feels like the mini isn't nice anymore. It isn't, done, and then I get really frustrated with it. So it's totally playing to my own foibles. All right, before we do that, we are going to do the gold on the back of this. Yeah, it always comes down to do what works for you. But that is one of the first things I tell people, like when new mini painters ask me for my top tips for new mini painters, the first thing I tell them is to put it on a handle. Put it on a block. Otherwise, I watch them sit there and hold it by the base and rub paint off of it while they try to paint it. And then they're sad. So, it's good that you can manage without one. A lot of people do better with one. So a little bit of highlighting on here. She's a nice mini. Yeah, I do like her. We need still to do more work on the backside, but I at least can get the gold blocked in now that we've got some gold mixed up. Gold colors. You shouldn't feel left out. If it works for you and you don't have problems with your minis rubbing off, and then you're magical as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm pretty good at avoiding rub off, but even I will inevitably have a problem with it if I don't have a handle. Or bubble wrap. Do love my bubble wrap. Yeah, when they have a minimal base, that is where the handle really helps you. Yeah, Valendar, I think there's a lot of good ones. If you're on my Patreon, I just did a PDF about some of them and their uses. The first 6, or the first 6 I chose. Technically, it's the first 6 my stream chose because I asked them which ones they wanted me to do first. It's just a little bit of the base color to come in and bring out these details. Lightening up the top a little bit more. Yeah, double-sided. Yeah, I used to use pennies. Some of my round holders are still filled with pennies or bad minis. Someone in the Discord's watched all of them. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, there's some in there that I've been wanting to get out for a long time, and there's some that I've wanted to have in the regular line for a long time. And there are some that Michael Proctor has been agitating to have in the regular line for a long time. Bruised Purple and Carnival Purple, I'm looking at you. So you can blame Michael on Crow's Nest for a couple of those colors being in the Kickstarter. He better be happy, that's all I'm saying. Y'all gotta go out and buy them if you haven't already gotten them, because we want them to stay in print. Especially Black Indigo. Like, what am I gonna do if I can't find Black Indigo? I mean, I'm thinking of buying a second Gloom and Grave Fast palette just for another bottle of Death Knight Black. I mean, come on. Oh, yeah. Master Series stays good for a long time. Especially if you, like, shake them regularly. I usually tell people shake them every 1 to 3 years. 1 to 2 years if you want to be really safe. Just give them a good shake. They might still be good if you left them in a box and didn't do anything to them for, like, 5 years. But then you're kind of taking your life in your hands there. Because every paint will slowly fall out of solution if it's left to its own devices. No matter how good the base is. So, but yeah, MSP, I still have bottles. When I was still working at Reaper in the paint lab, I had bottles of MSP from the original batch over 15 years ago, and they were still good. So, and they all get shaken like at least once a year, depending on how popular the paint is. But I'd say that even the paint that doesn't flip very often flips once a year. Yeah, definitely get that fast palette when it comes out. The Gloom and Grave is really, I think, a really useful set of colors. I like it a lot. A lot. Now I sound like a Murloc. A lot. Now we're bringing in our much brighter color. Standard inclusions really depend on you. Over the years, I've refined, like, my paint drawer next to me has about 100 different colors in it, Cursed. And those are the colors that I just reach for. I find that they satisfy every paint job I ever want to do, in general. But they really are, like, the colors that, like, everybody's got their own palette. Everybody likes their own set of colors. We all have certain color combos that we really love. So, but most of the time, the one thing I will tell you is that the more bright the color is, the more versatile it is. Because you can always mix something with it to gray it out or brown it out or take it down a notch, but you can't mix anything with it to make it brighter unless you're using an even brighter color. So if you start with really vibrant, saturated, bright colors, you can usually dial them to what you need. And that's why I tend to go for more saturated hues in my box here. Because I know that unless it's a very specific muted color that I love, and there are those, I do have some. Because some muted colors can be very hard to mix. And so those muted colors I do keep in my box, even though they are muted. And some of them are just like colors that are perfect for like something that I paint. Like Ashen Blue, 9057 being so good to mix into steel for NMM, especially if you're trying to suggest a sky reflection. Stuff like that. So there are some muted colors that I use that really are integral to some of the things I do. But it's also a very personal choice as far as like what colors you consider integral. Yeah, there were still, I mean, there used to be raw Partha colors that I really liked that nobody else quite made the right match for. Turquoises are funny. People are very particular about their teals and which ones they like and which ones they don't. I'm going to bring in some shadows here. I've got my liner. These little runes on the scabbard are probably just going to be, I don't know, I guess I could do them in gold, although part of me is like loath to do yet more NMM, but I guess I'm here, so. Otherwise I was going to just do them in raised green and that wouldn't look as good. So we'll see. These are not as high relief as the ones on the swords, so it is a little hard to see them. Nope, stretch break is about to happen. Yeah, I never did a precise match for that, Cursed. I'm trying to think of which one was the closest. But that's a color I never really, because I was the one making the paint for a very long time. And there was a time I was looking at some of the older GW hues that I think I might not have had a bottle of it. If you don't have a wet sample, I find it is very hard. I was able to match snakebite leather for somebody, but that's because they had a bottle of it still. And so they let me essentially utilize the bottle. But I always found that if I didn't have an active bottle of a sample, I could not pull there's no way to pull a match from just online swatches and stuff. You have to have it in hand. Some people use dry samples, but I find that if you're not sure if it's not a very simple formula and there's some complexity in it, sometimes I need to see it wet to see that what extra pigment is added in there. So that's probably why we never got an exact match for Hawk. It's just that I didn't have access to it. Because I was thinking about that. Like when I was making like the Bones turquoise, I was like, I should get something that looks like Hawk turquoise. Because it's pretty. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't use it all cursed. I'd try to actually mix it from the teals you've got. You should be able to hit it. Okay, so teal obviously is like clear blue plus clear green. Like it's just blue plus green. And usually, often, it'll have a little bit of black in it or a little bit of white in it. Sometimes a little bit of gray in it. So it's not a really hard match if you have time to play and you have an example of what you're trying to match. But don't use all of your hawk turquoise and then try to match it. Then you're going to have trouble. Got to see it wet. Got to see it wet and dry, in my opinion, having created, over 500 colors for Reaper. And if you don't have mixing foo, if you have a friend who has mixing foo or who is in the arts, totally hit that friend up and ask them to help you. Don't we have something that's like bloodstone now? Like, don't we have something close? Am I wrong about that? It's another one of those teals. So let's try this in gold real quick here. Using the same thing we did on the silver sword, only here our white's going to show up a lot more. And it's a little hard to see these runes, so sometimes I'm just going to kind of guess and freehand it. Yeah, I mean, if you can still get it from somewhere, then get it. But at some point, if you learn to mix it from commonly available paints, you will have all the power. You will never have to worry about it if it is hard to get. I tend to do that. It's also good to understand that you do not need a precise match for your models to look at on the tabletop. There is such a point as close enough for the human eyeball. All of these things I learned while replicating and mixing colors for Reaper. And in my own work as well. I learned that I didn't have to be too much of a stickler about matching the color exactly. I just need to get close enough. Hey, Room Master. It's a squirrel day. Hey, and I need to stretch. I really need to stretch since my back has been, tweaky lately. So let us put down our pretty Lysette and our pretty gold runes and stand up and stretch. Oh, I see. You don't have... you wish you could see it in person. Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. It's hard to buy colors when you can't see them in person. Alright, so yeah, if you've been sitting like a lump like me for the last hour and some time, you should stretch. Your back and your shoulders will like you better. They may not love you, but they'll probably like you better if you stretch. Mine do. Paint mixers. Yeah, I just do it the old-fashioned way still. But that's the advantage of, having a limited selection of paint these days. Is that I use it all pretty frequently enough that I don't have to go through and shake it all. Yeah, I know. Well, that just takes the fun out of it, though, Pendrake. People like me won't have jobs anymore. Lots of people won't have jobs anymore when you can just use nanotechnology to replicate anything. Plus, according to Picard, chocolate chip cookies that are replicated are not the same as chocolate chip cookies that are fresh baked. So, if I'm to take Picard as Star Trek canon, then I would have to say that replicated everything is not perfect. I'm going to do my stretches. I will be right back. Oof. Do-do-do. I return. I don't know, Valandar. I don't know. I don't know if something molecularly structured, like, I don't know if it gets it perfect. Maybe the replicator's idea of a chocolate chip cookie is not the particular chocolate chip cookie you are looking for. Like, maybe you would have to sit and tweak it and go, okay, just a tiny bit more vanilla. Just a tiny bit more vanilla. A little bit more salt. That would be kind of annoying. Right. Yeah, I don't know if that would be a good idea, though, Pendrake. Like, because you can quote-unquote replicate a color without completely replicating the formula exactly and precisely to the same points. Like I said, there is such a thing as close enough. Your eye will not be able to distinguish the difference, but if there's even 1/48th of a different pigment in there, it's not the same formula. And the color would be indistinguishable to you, like the difference. Maybe transporters are mixing up your molecules, Shadow Raven, and they're just not telling you that. But at any rate, I kind of think replicators are a bad idea, personally. So that's just me. I guess it solves some problems and makes others. Alrighty. Now let's get the rest of this NMM kind of figured out down in here. No, I mean, I grew up watching the original Star Trek, and I've watched bits and pieces of other Star Treks, and I've also watched Star Wars. I guess people say that you like either one or the other. I like them both for different reasons. I think they're a different type of storytelling sometimes. There we go. Yes, Pendrake, you are the overanalyzing person. If I ever need somebody who overanalyzes things, like, are you in QC? Because if you're not in QC, you should be. Like, as a career choice. Troubleshooting, things like that. They're kind of closer than ever. Aren't Marvel and DC owned by the same people now? Like, I don't think you can really say there's a difference anymore. Because Marvel got darker, and DC got brighter. And the most imaginative superhero movie of the recent past is still Deadpool, so... And maybe Guardians of the Galaxy also belongs up there, since they're unusual. Ah, okay. I don't think that's true, because isn't DC where Batman came from? And Marvel where Superman came from? Or have I inverted those? But back in the dawn, I thought that that was the case, that Marvel was the brighter of the two, and DC was the darker of the two. But maybe I've gotten it mixed up. I am not a huge comic book person. I think I went too low with that. Batman and Superman are both DC? Okay. Like I said, I'm not a huge expert. Sandman was DC, and that was one of my favorite comic books. It was definitely not a super bright and happy comic book. Yeah. I will admit to liking happy stories. Alright, I think I've got most of it. It's all the writers, right? It's like, it's not even like necessarily the company, but it's the writers that worked for them that formulated the storytelling. Originally, anyway. Now, who knows? Maybe it's all kind of mass-produced. Maybe you have to follow a template. I don't know. I have no idea. Okay. Yeah, sometimes that's true with books too, right, Kroniko? If you haven't read the book, sometimes you like the movie a little bit more than people who have. Not always true, though. I mean, I've read Lord of the Rings, and I still enjoyed the movies. But then I tend to think that the print story and the visual story are two different versions of things anyway, so discrepancies don't annoy me. Because it's such a different style of storytelling that there are just things you can do with a movie that you can't do with fiction, and vice versa. I blorfed a bit, so I'm going to re-black that in. But those look pretty good, I think, those runes. Alrighty. Just kind of adjusting, tweaking, and correcting little bits that I feel I let get too out of control. Yeah, I mean, these are the runes from this order, as much of them as I could see. Like, I am definitely extrapolating here and there because I couldn't clearly see them. They aren't quite as in sharp relief as the sword runes. Yeah, in the Bombadil camp, I don't really care about, like... it doesn't bother me that he's not in the movies because of what I said, that it's a different medium. And with movies, there's a lot harder focus on what's the actual story we're telling. And Bombadil's really cool and gives you some kind of weird insight on, like, Middle-earth, like, as an entity. But he doesn't have anything directly to do with the story, so I can see why they didn't put him in the movie. When you're trying to take a gigantic thing like Lord of the Rings and shrink it down to something like 3 movies, you can't do everything. There's just no way. You have to focus. I think interviews with Fran and Peter when Lord of the Rings was first coming out actually said exactly that. Because they had to ask themselves, whose story is this really? Like, where are we actually focusing? Because otherwise, they could have gone on for 10 movies. Well, they have to. It takes longer to, like, tell the story. Like, you don't have all that exposition you have in a book, right? You have to keep it moving, and you have to keep the story going, and you have to think about really how focused you are, right? You're telling a story. You have limited time, very limited time to tell it in. Movie scripts are a lot shorter than novels. Even if they run, even if the movie itself runs 2 hours. That's why, I think, if I recall right, I could be wrong about this, but I believe that's why George R. R. Martin wanted to go with HBO for Song of Ice and Fire, is he knew that the movie format in Hollywood wouldn't be big enough for the breadth of the series of the books to actually accurately tell the story. And so he thought that only a serialization that ran for several seasons could actually do the complexity correctly. And I think he was right. Like, there was no way you could take Song of Ice and Fire and put it in 3 movies, or even 5. So I think that it's interesting how the different digital formats are growing now, where you've got the cable, or not, they're not cable anymore, but the networks out there that are doing different stuff. Yeah, War Shadow, I mean, heard a lot of people complain about it. I'm interested to see what George's story actually is, right? Because they departed from it. So I don't think so, War Shadow. I know him personally, so I have a certain vantage point. George is just trying to get it right. He has his own... The story's been in George's head forever. He's not changing anything with HBO. It doesn't influence him. He's always been very careful about that. I don't think he's afraid to finish it. Gurm is not afraid of readers hating him, okay? Otherwise, he wouldn't kill their favorite characters. I thought some parts of it were actually pretty good in the HBO, actually. I was disappointed in parts. And I felt like character decisions were rushed a bit, but in some places that really didn't resonate. But I don't think it was all terrible. They had his notes up through the end cursed. Gurm is a notes writer. He's somebody who has like hundreds of pages of background on the history of his world written. His archives are kept by SMU down in Texas. So he did give HBO his notes, and they chose to depart from them throughout the series in various ways. And it was always understood, although it was always understood that it might be different, like back at the beginning of the association, that they might choose to end it differently, or they might not. I don't know how that all worked out. But that's all I'll say on the subject. But I will defend Gurm. He's my friend. When you're a writer, I mean, and you finally get the opportunity to see your world actually brought to life in the way that you've always wanted it to be, if I was in his boat, I would have made the same decision. And once it belongs to somebody else, they can do with it what they will. Yeah, I mean, with Wheel of Time, you've even got, well, you've, presumably, I don't know if Robert Jordan had kids. Did he? Did he have people, like a wife or kids or family crows? Because the reason I ask about family surviving Robert Jordan is just wondering if there's a curation, essentially, like somebody trying to keep whoever has the rights true to the spirit, like the Tolkien Foundation. Which, they can be blessings or curses, because when the writer is dead, it's never quite the same to have, like, the family making the decisions. But... oh, wife is a strong advocate? Okay, cool. Oh, nice. Okay. That's good. Yeah, Brandon was a good choice. I mean, that's cool. Thanks, Otter Mama. I wondered, because I'm not a Wheel of Time fan, so I haven't kept up with any of that other than I knew that Brandon had finished the series and I had considered going back to read the last books. Well, then that's good. As long as there's somebody there to advocate, then there's a possibility that maybe it will be good. I think it's important to have that with creative properties. Cool. There we go. Here we are. All right, so we've got our gold runes on our sword, and now we just need to put a little bit. I've got 5 minutes, so I can put the final touches of white on the runes down here. I need to get my yellow up here, and then we'll have done a crap ton of runes this time, guys. All right, so pure white. Once again, little pinpoints, because you want that shininess. Right now we don't have shiny. We've got runes in relief, but we do not have shiny until we introduce the pure white. And we'll see if I have the right amount of yellow in there, or if my white is bright enough. Sometimes if your white isn't strong enough, and you get kind of a thinned white dot, you won't get the punch you need for that shine, and you need to actually thicken up your paint a little bit. A little bit. Need a bit more yellow. Didn't go quite as get quite as much yellow on these. feel like I need that yellow to be just a little stronger. But we're getting there. Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Tristanoma. Definitely. I think it's going to be a good weekend. Hopefully everybody has a fairly relaxing weekend, unless you have things that you absolutely must do that are not relaxing, and then I hope they go as well as can be expected. I am going to try to have a nice relaxing weekend. There we go. Got my white a little bit stronger. Need little bits of it. There we go. More shine. More shine. So you add that white and it really... Tabitha, this is my, it's kind of my standard, this is the brush I can use for pretty much everything. It's a Da Vinci Maestro. It's a Kolinsky Sable, which is a really high quality brush. A series is 10, which means it's their standard round. There's the little 10 right there. And then the size is size 1. For a size 1, it's actually on the small side. It's equivalent to like a Winsor Newton size 0. But it is pretty much, if I was trapped on a desert island with only one brush, this is the brush I can do pretty much everything with. Because even though it's not a tiny brush, it has a really, really good tip. So it can do really tiny details pretty effortlessly. And I find that Da Vinci brushes are really high, have a really high standard of craftsmanship, so it holds together really well. I never have a problem with them splaying. At least we got a bunch of this rune stuff done. Might do leather next time, or I might continue to finish up runes in gold. We'll see. I feel like, there we go. We've got our runes. Happiness! Yay! We still do have some more gold to do on the back. And we have runes to do on the front. But otherwise, that made good progress, so sweet! Oh yeah, there's a bunch of synthetic and real mixes, Pendrake. In fact, Winsor Newton has some hybrids. It still tends to curl because you've still got synthetic hairs in there. So unfortunately, it'll hold together longer, but then when it starts to curl, just like a regular synthetic. That's been my experience with them anyway. I tried out one a long time ago, so it could be they've improved, but at that point, the only reason to use that is price, like to get a cut in cost. And if it doesn't do the job you need it for, then, or if it doesn't do it for very long, then it's probably a waste of money. But like I said, there's, I think, honestly, Pendrake, if you were going to go and synthetic at all, I would try one of the synthetic Kolinskys instead. It's still, again, it's still going to curl at the tip eventually, but so synthetic Kolinskys aren't bad. Yeah, it's a thing. It's been a thing for forever. But anyway, so all right, we are ready to wrap up. What we did today is we spent a lot of time doing NMM runes, hopefully correcting our problem, and indeed we did correct our problem. I'm much happier with the sword now, with the gold runes instead of the purple. It gives enough contrast and gives a nice shininess to it. So then I'm going to go and replicate that on the front of the blade. We also still we started doing some of the other gold NMM stuff back here that we didn't finish out, but we didn't quite get to it. Because that was a lot of tiny runes to do. As you can see, it takes a long time to do that fine detail, right? So, yeah, it's satisfying because it looks nice at the end. It does, but as you can see, it does take a long time to just do those tiny little things over and over and over with different colors. It is pretty zen though, guys. Like if you're looking for just zen, filling in little NMM runes like this is pretty fun. So that's what we did today. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Like I said, I'm planning to relax. I hope that a bunch of you also have a nice relaxing weekend. Maybe cook out, maybe hang out, play some computer games, paint maybe. Finish some Reaper Challenge League minis. Yes, that's a good thing to do with your weekend. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody also who came over for my stream on my channel yesterday. I do have my own stream on Thursdays. It's twitch.tv/paintingbig. I tend to work on my own competition models over there, so we do some more high-end stuff, and we also do like bigger models. And then I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig, and we do a lot of stuff over there. That's fun. Lots of stuff about MSP Paint. If you're into MSP Paint, that's what I do on my stream or on my Patreon. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for the links in the chat, Quindy, for those. And yeah, let's just wrap it. Monday is Bronze Golem Day, so be sure to be here on Monday at 11:30 a.m. USA Central Time for more pro tips. All right? Have a great one, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.